She's in prison, locked up for the rest of her life. I have a great life right now, and I'm with people who love me, and a real mother who actually cares about me. I don't even love her, and just because she gave birth to me, it doesn't mean she's my mom. She is Annie.
On Mother's Day in 2006, which was meant to be filled with love and gratitude, a mother was taken from this world in a senseless act of violence. The warmth and tenderness that she brought to her family was snuffed out in an instant, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and pain. This incident left her loved ones struggling to make sense of a world that can be so cruel. The memory of this mother will forever be etched in the hearts of those who knew and loved her, and her untimely death serves as a reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of holding our loved ones close while we still can. Welcome back to Mysterious 7, where we shed light on under-the-radar cases from across the globe. Today we'll be looking at the disturbing case of Patricia Mery, a shocking murder that rocked a community and left a family shattered. But first, if you still haven't subscribed to our channel, consider doing so and make sure to hit that like button. Let's dive right into the mystery without any further ado. It's time to turn our focus to the small town of Ossining, located in Westchester County, New York. Though small in size, Ossining is known for its diverse population, with residents coming from all over the world, creating a unique cultural blend. One of the most notable landmarks in Ossining is the Sing Sing Correctional Facility, which has been in operation for almost 2 centuries. In addition to the prison, Ossining is also known for its beautiful parks and scenic views of the Hudson River. Despite its picturesque scenery and charming appearance, Ossining has been the site of some of the most notorious crimes in American history. And today, we'll be delving into one of them. At about 7:45 p.m. on Saturday, May 13, 2006, Westchester County Child Protective Services received a call from an anonymous female caller reporting alleged child abuse at a house in Ossining, New York. CPS then contacted the Ossining Police Department, and officers were dispatched to the home. However, they found the house locked and the lights off in the home. Without a warrant, they did not investigate the matter further. The following day, May 14, 2006, was Mother's Day. At around 12:45 p.m. that day, the Ossining Police Department received a call from a man named Michael Mery, who said that no one from his family had heard from his sister, 59-year-old Patricia Mery, since May 11, 2006. Michael met the police at his sister's house. It turned out to be the same house officers visited the previous night. Patricia's car was in the driveway, and a couple of newspapers were lying at the bottom of the front stairs. The house was unusually quiet, and no one was answering the door. Although all signs pointed to trouble, without any obvious signs of foul play, police officers didn't have enough probable cause to break into the home. That's when Michael stepped in. He requested the officers to wait outside and assured them that he would call them in if he needed help. After walking around for a few minutes, Michael discovered an open window and managed to enter the house through it. He feared that Patricia might have gotten into an accident inside the home and fallen unconscious, unable to call for help. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight he was about to witness. It was a scene straight from a horror movie. On the living room floor, 59-year-old Patricia Mery was lying face up, covered in blood. A yellow plastic bag had been placed over her head. The aluminum baseball bat and a butcher's knife were laid close. It was evident that Patricia was brutally stabbed and beaten. Stained walls told the tale of a gruesome crime. Struggling to swallow down his tears, Michael frantically ran to the officers, stumbling to articulate the horror he'd just witnessed. Patricia was stabbed 24 times, then beaten to death. It was not just a kill, but clearly an overkill. Investigators noticed that the last time Patricia brought the daily newspaper inside was on May 10, 2006, which led them to believe that Patricia had been dead for 3 days at that point. However, there were no signs of forced entry or robbery. On a closer inspection, they found 2 hairs on the knife. Shockingly, they also discovered a handwritten note beside Patricia's dead body. The note suggested a sinister plot that involved the kidnapping of her granddaughter. Investigators knew that to track down the killer, they had to dig deeper into what was going on with this family. Patricia Ann Mery was born on April 11, 1947, in Ossining, New York, to her Roman Catholic parents, Adrian and Anne Veronica Mery. She was the eldest of her 6 siblings, growing up in a home filled with love and laughter. From a young age, Patricia loved to study and understood the importance of education. So when the time came to choose her profession, she chose to give back something to society. After completing her graduation, she became a Spanish teacher. With her gentle and positive persona, she was loved by all her students and her co-workers. As a believer in kindness, she always walked the extra mile to lend a hand to someone in need. She often stayed late at school to call the parents and let them know how their children were doing. Patricia was a woman who never shirked her responsibilities. Being a very religious woman, she still found time to visit the church regularly. No doubt that it was easy to fall in love with this amazing woman, and that's what happened to George Trovato, a fellow school teacher at Patricia's school. The feelings were mutual, and after dating for a few years, the pair were married in 1979. On November 9, 1979, Patricia gave birth to their first child, a beautiful daughter whom they named Anne Trovato. The Trovato family welcomed their second child, a son, John Trovato, on June 13, 1981. Unfortunately, their marriage wasn't working anymore. Shortly after John's birth, the couple got a divorce, and the children remained with Patricia. Now a single mother, Patricia did her best to provide a loving and caring environment for her children. As the children grew up, it was clear that they had completely different personalities. Anne was more on the rebellious side, but her creative side also blossomed with time. She was very talented in arts and made beautiful birthday and Christmas cards. Yet she often hung out with the wrong crowd. John, on the other hand, matured into a responsible and hardworking young man. After college, he found work as a part-time electrician and volunteered in the fire department. Even though Patricia would never say it out loud, she seemed to get along with John much more easily than with Anne. He was extremely close with his mother, and his sweet temper played a part in that. This could have created a sibling rivalry, but surprisingly, Anne and John had a tight bond despite the stark character differences between them. August 1, 2002 was any other regular day in Ossining. However, to 21-year-old John Trovato, it was a monumental day. That day, he took his license test and passed. Unfortunately, as he was riding his motorcycle back home, he got into an accident that cost him his life. It was a big blow for both Patricia and Anne, who doted on John. It was such a terrible incident that they never fully recovered from this loss. Both women were heartbroken, but their ways of grieving were completely different. Patricia decided to retire, ending her 30-year-long teaching career at Summers High School in Westchester, so she could spend more time with her only surviving child. On the contrary, Anne started going out more and began to live a party lifestyle. In 2001, Anne began a romantic relationship with a local boxer named Ron Kerner after meeting him at a local club. There were rumors that Ron was connected to the mob, and Anne had fallen for his bad boy image. Although Patricia didn't approve of this relationship, Anne didn't care. A few months into the relationship, in the fall of 2002, Anne fell pregnant. With this news, she decided to put a stop to her wild lifestyle for the sake of her child. She cut off all communication with Ron and told him that she'd gotten an abortion. Anne had told her family that the father of the baby didn't want anything to do with the child. Patricia was excited to be a grandmother, so she didn't ask too many questions. On June 18, 2003, Anne gave birth to her daughter, Ariana. It was the first joyous occasion for both Patricia and Anne after John's passing. The little girl was a ray of light that brought them out of a dark phase and gave them hope for the future. To provide for a better future for her granddaughter, Patricia decided to go back to teaching and accepted a job at West Hill High School in Stamford, Connecticut. Anne was also trying to be the best mother she could possibly be to her little bundle of joy. But sadly, their troubles were not over yet. It was now 2006, and Ariana was 3 years old and the apple of the eyes of both her mother and grandmother. But in those years, Anne and Patricia's relationship worsened. They frequently found themselves arguing, mostly regarding the upbringing of Ariana. They fought before too, but now John wasn't there to become a liaison between them. With each passing day, they were grieving the immeasurable loss of their loved one. While Patricia found her comfort in the church, Anne found other ways to cope with her grief. Anne even looked at Ariana as if she was her brother reincarnated. Hoping to connect with her dead brother, Anne soon contacted a local psychic and tarot card reader, Gloria Magnetti. During her first visit, Gloria told Anne that John was in the room with them. She also told her about a terrifying vision where she saw blood all around. Despite this intense first session, Anne was hooked. She regularly booked sessions with her, believing her brother was trying to talk to her. But these sessions got weirder and weirder. On one occasion, Gloria even claimed that she saw that something was going to happen to someone close to Anne. As she spent more time with Gloria, Anne developed a close bond with Gloria's 30-year-old daughter, Carmela Magnetti. Over time, Anne trusted them so much that she let Carmela spend time with Ariana as well. For some reason, Carmela became obsessed with the little girl and even offered to be her nanny. Meanwhile, Gloria had been scamming money from Anne and Patricia on various occasions to provide for her own gambling habit. Needless to say, Patricia did not approve of the whole ordeal. She even called out the Magnetti mother-daughter, saying they were like a cult. This calamity permanently strained their relationship. Patricia tried to convince Anne that the Magnettis are nothing but a bad influence on her, but she seemed to believe the strangers more than her own mother. She even believed that her mother was suffering from mental illness and insisted that she seek therapy, which Patricia refused time and again. The dispute was not limited to the closed walls anymore. The situation deteriorated so much that even police were called to their home to break up the fights that turned physical on multiple occasions. Anne's lack of trust in her mother and Patricia's unsupportiveness of her daughter did not help the situation. But all hell broke loose on Halloween night in 2005 when Anne received email messages from someone claiming to be her brother, John. The messages warned her to stay away from their mom because Patricia and their uncle Mike were allegedly trying to kidnap Ariana. Worrying for Ariana's safety, in November of 2005, Anne left Patricia's house with her daughter and moved in with Carmela and Gloria in Pleasantville, New York. They blocked Patricia from seeing Ariana, but Patricia fought back and went to family court to gain visitation rights to see her granddaughter. In the late spring of 2005, Patricia was granted limited visitation. Although it was just once a month for an hour, Patricia was happy to see Ariana and was trying to gain greater visitation time with her. Anne wasn't thrilled about this arrangement, but she agreed to work things out with her mother. Yet Patricia's torment didn't end there. Just a few weeks before her murder, strange things began to happen. She called the police a few times, complaining that she thought someone was trying to break into her house, but cops couldn't find any evidence. On another occasion, the tires of her Chevrolet Blazer were slashed. At the end of April 2006, Patricia again called the police to report that the brakes of her car were not working properly and fluids were leaking. She feared that someone intentionally cut off the brakes. When responding officers had a look, they found that was exactly what had happened. It was terrifying for her to think about the consequences if she had kept driving longer. Unfortunately, her luck would run out just a few days later. As whispers of this killing began buzzing through the night, people in Ossining were in a state of shock and disbelief with their tranquility taken away. Despite being the home of the notorious Sing Sing prison, the peaceful small town did not often witness violent crimes. Patricia's murder was the first homicide in 6 years in Ossining, so investigators knew they had to act fast. Since the handwritten note found at the crime scene alleged Michael's involvement, police started their investigation with him. He admitted to the police that he and Patricia hadn't been on good terms at the time she died. He explained that CPS had visited Patricia several times in the past few years regarding alleged child abuse in the home while it was still being shared with Anne and her young daughter. Although CPS found no evidence of abuse, Anne blamed her Uncle Mike for making the calls. Mike said he was shocked when Patricia took her daughter's side. He believed that the calls had come from Carmela and her mother. Patricia's family also supported Mike, and they insisted that Mike could never do such a thing to his sister. Mike also had an alibi. On the day Patricia was murdered, he'd been out prom dress shopping with his own daughter. He was eventually eliminated as a suspect. The next stop for investigators was Anne Travado, and considering her recent history with her mother, she was at the top of the suspect list. At 1 a.m. on May 15, 2006, Anne was brought to the Ossining police station for questioning. By then, Patricia's family already informed her about her mother's death. Although she was cooperating with the investigators, she looked very upset. During interrogation, Anne told the investigators that the last time she'd seen her mother was on May 9, 2006, during the court-ordered visitation. She also claimed, although she had a lot of friction with her mother around the time of Patricia's death, the two of them were working things out, and they were close to agreeing on visitation terms. When investigators asked her about the harassment of her mother, she claimed that Patricia wasn't the only one who was being targeted. Anne said that around the time Patricia was being hassled with these unprovoked attacks, she and Carmela had been followed by a black van for days. Anne even made a police report describing the black van and also stated that eggs had been thrown at the Magnetti residence. On May 9th, the day of Patricia's last visitation day with Ariana, things escalated. Anne once again called the police to report an anonymous threatening message on her phone, saying that Carmela would be killed if Anne brought her daughter to visit Patricia. Investigators were having a hard time fully believing Anne's story, so they asked who could have an interest in Ariana's custody battle. Anne could only think of one person, Ariana's biological father and Anne's ex-boyfriend, Ron Kerner. According to Anne, Ron was connected to the mafia, so he possessed a lot of power. She also claimed that Ron was adamant that she get an abortion since he was not interested in taking on the responsibility of a baby. So she lied to him about getting rid of her child and gave birth to Ariana behind his back. Anne believed that he somehow found out about this and intentionally targeted her family to seek revenge. Her theory also hinted that Ron could have been the person responsible for Patricia's death. As for her own involvement, Anne claimed that despite all disagreements and fights, she still loved her mother very much and could never think of hurting her. She was very hurt by Patricia's demise and wished she was there. Anne was also able to provide an alibi. She said that during the time of the murder, she'd been shopping with Carmela and Ariana at the White Plains Mall. As proof, she also provided a parking ticket. While detectives talked to Carmela to double-check the facts, she also told almost an identical story, mentioning the parking ticket as well. Cops looked to Gloria too, but she was ruled out after her alibi of gambling at the time of the murder checked out. Next, police knocked on the door of Ron Kerner, hoping that he might provide some new information. Ron looked truly shell-shocked to hear that Anne had not been honest with him about keeping the baby. He told the detectives that the last time he saw Anne was in 2002. She briefly told him about the pregnancy, and then within a few days cut off all ties with him after informing him that she had an abortion. He insisted that he had no idea about Ariana until the time the investigators sat down with him. He also denied any connection to Patricia's murder. Detectives asked him where he was on that fateful day, to which he replied that he was working as a promoter for a boxing match. Photos from the match proved his story of his whereabouts, and he was subsequently cleared as a suspect. With leads drying up, detectives decided to try a new tactic. Although the possibility seemed far-fetched, investigators still tracked down Patricia's ex-husband, George Travato. George's divorce from Patricia was very messy, and Patricia, after receiving sole custody, made sure that George and his family stayed away from the children. Even when John died, George could not be there. So naturally, detectives were curious to see if he was holding a grudge against his ex-wife. Although George admitted that he felt Patricia completely shut him out from his kids, he had no reason to harm her, especially after all these years. Additionally, George provided evidence that he was on the road around the time of the murder. Detectives could not find any evidence to connect him with the killing, and he was eventually cleared of suspicion. Although most of the suspects were cleared of suspicion, the investigation into Patricia's murder went on. To gather more information, detectives decided to talk to Patricia's co-workers. They provided a significant lead. Before her death, Patricia confided in them that she believed Carmela and Gloria had been turning Anne against her. She was concerned for her granddaughter, and that's why she wanted more visitation rights. Patricia also believed that all the harassment she was facing was a direct result of retaliation from her own daughter. Yet, she was not going to back off. This was definitely crucial for the investigation, but detectives were not yet to find solid proof against Anne or Carmela. Armed with this new information, investigators decided to take another look at Anne's alibi. Shockingly, investigators discovered the parking ticket only showed a half-truth. The surveillance camera of the White Plains shopping mall displayed that Carmela was at the mall with Ariana, but Anne was nowhere in sight. Her cell phone location records also placed her in Ossining around the time of the murder. In hopes of gathering further evidence, detectives also conducted a search in Carmela's home. On Carmela's personal computer, they discovered something so disturbing that it sent chills down their spines. Carmela was sending emails to Anne, disguised as her dead brother, John. Detectives then sat for another round of interviews with Carmela. After hours of interrogation, she admitted to sending the emails to Anne on behalf of John, but denied any connection to the murder. When investigators confronted her about the surveillance footage, she tried to make excuses, saying that she went to the mall with Ariana while Anne waited in the car. It wasn't until investigators told her that her cell phone records placed her in the vicinity of Patricia's house on the same day of her murder that Carmela revealed the wicked details of their murderous plot. She confessed that on May 11, 2006, she dropped Anne off at her mother's Ossining home and then took Ariana to the mall to create an alibi. Detectives also learned that after brutally butchering her helpless mother, Anne called the CPS herself, probably trying to lead them to her body. On August 4, 2006, around 1 p.m., as she was leaving a friend's house in Westchester, Anne was arrested for the murder of her mother. She, however, continued to protest her innocence. Detectives would later share there was no expression on her face. Carmela was also taken into custody for helping Anne to get rid of the evidence and fake an alibi. The police had heaps of evidence against Anne, but what sealed her fate was the handwritten note and the hairs found on the murder weapon. Handwriting experts determined that Anne wrote the note, and DNA from the hairs were also tested against hers, which produced a match. With her mother serving time behind bars, 4-year-old Ariana was placed in custody with her father, Ron. Anne's trial didn't begin until September 2007. While presenting all the evidence, the prosecution painted a timeline that also suggested that she had both motive and opportunity to commit the crime. They stated that Anne believed that there was a plot to kidnap her child, and along with Carmela, she told several people that Patricia and her sister were in on that plan. The sister, Anne's aunt, Maureen Magaro, testified in court that she had a loving relationship with Anne until July or August of 2005. During that time, Anne unexpectedly accused Maureen of having a private detective follow her and planting drugs in her car to make her look like an unfit mother, none of which Maureen reassured was true. The lead prosecutor, Lana Hochheiser, also detailed Anne's cover-up plot after the murder, which she called so twisted and so lurid that you'd think it came from a script for a B-movie. They brought Arthur Walsh, a friend of Anne's, as a witness. Arthur testified that Anne had once confessed to killing Patricia and told him, "I want you to know I did it for Carmela." Finally, they presented the DNA evidence which directly connected her to the murder weapon. Miles Dale, Anne's neighbor, also provided his testimony in court. He said that she blacked out with a knife in her hand once and dropped a disturbing question before him. "What would you do if a loved one attacked you?" Anne's defense tried to portray Anne as a naive and gullible mother who was too concerned with her daughter's well-being. Her defense lawyer, Alan Fokerile, stated that Anne did not know what she was doing. He blamed the Magnetti family for manipulating her in a deadly and treacherous fashion. Regardless of what Anne's state of mind was, the jury was not buying the narrative that she was completely unaware of the consequences of her actions. She slaughtered her mother with her own hands, then tried to cover it up. She made a decision that culminated in destroying her own future and changing that of her mother and daughter forever. The jury took just 4 hours to find Anne Travado guilty of second-degree murder. She ended up being sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. She's serving her time at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Westchester County, New York. She'll be eligible for parole in 2031. Carmela was convicted of hindering the prosecution and tampering with evidence, as detectives believed that she first dropped Anne at Patricia's house, then came back later and got rid of her clothes, and later supported her phony alibi of the parking ticket. Carmela Magnetti was eventually sentenced to 2 1/3 to 7 years in prison. However, her mother Gloria was never charged with any crime. This heart-wrenching tale leaves us all grappling with the complexities of human relationships and how the depths of despair can lead to such a heinous act. What adds to this tragedy is that motherhood cost Patricia her life, something that her own daughter was trying to save her for herself. In the end, the little girl lost both her mother and her grandmother on that Mother's Day in 2006, the only family she'd known for the first 4 years of her life. Let us also take a moment to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the investigators and law enforcement officials who remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice for this victim. Do you think Anne Travado had been manipulated by the Magnetti family? Or had she been driven by her own inner demons? Let us know your opinions in the comment section. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more bone-chilling true crime stories.